What do you say, everybody? Welcome back to the Bama Tailgate Show. Always love talking Alabama football with you guys and appreciate Chris Lowe for joining us from On3, longtime college football expert and our good friend. Great to see you, Chris. Bama versus Tennessee, third Saturday in October matchup. I feel like the greatest rivalry in SEC football history, arguably college football as well. And both of these teams are ranked, both of them right around the top 10. Bama 6, so they are in the top 10. And then Tennessee at number 11. Tennessee had one loss, a tough overtime defeat to Georgia. Bama lost to Florida State. They've been on a roll. So here you go. What do you think, Alabama and Tennessee? And I know you living in Knoxville. And let me say this, too. I should have jumped out saying this before I even let you talk. We're brought to you by Sevierville. Visit Sevierville. Your Smoky Mountains start here. You know, the commercial, the bears talking and the fish, it's talking too. I love it. It's my favorite commercial that we have on here because it just makes me laugh every time I see it. But you guys know the Sevierville, you know the Smoky Mountains. And right now we're in the middle of the Smoky Mountain Harvest Festival. That started in September and it ends on Halloween on October 31st. But it means creative fall displays throughout Sevierville, fall theme events, as well as brilliant fall colors in the trees. Peak leaf viewing is typically mid-October through mid-November. Learn more at visitsevierville.com/fall. And it is a beautiful time of year. And I think it ties into this game. When we're up there and we play at Neyland Stadium, it's not a better atmosphere when you see those teams jogging out on the field, crimson and orange. And then this year we'll do it in Tuscaloosa.
I'm just glad it's actually is the third Saturday in October. There are a few years there, Mick, where they didn't play this game on the third Saturday in October. So it lines up with its long-standing nickname. And I've seen a lot of these games going back to the early 80s, both in – gosh, I'm so old, I can remember this game being played in Birmingham.
Wow. I was at those. I guess that makes me old, too. I went to some of those. Peyton Manning orchestrating the band.
And that was in the 90s. I'll go back to that game being played there in the 80s. And there's so many memorable moments in this game. Players, think about the players that have played in the third Saturday in October game on both sides of the football. All pros, Pro Bowlers, guys that are legendary names, defense, offense. And we could sit here, it'd be cool, Mick, is to do an all third Saturday in October team from both sides. And the number of players that went on to be just absolute stars at the next level, college Hall of Famers, pro Hall of Famers, would be staggering. And that's one of the things that makes this game so special. And you know what? For people talk about the best rivalries in college football, I'll be honest, Tennessee did not uphold its end of the bargain the longest time. If it's going to be a true rivalry, one team's got to win, or one team can't win every year the way Bama did under Saban. Yeah. And finally, Tennessee has made a little bit of a turnaround. They won 2 of the last 3 in this series, but it really has been a little bit of a rivalry of streaks. You know, when Bryant was there, he owned Tennessee, and then Tennessee got a little bit going there with Majors in the 80s. They won, I think, 4 or 5 in a row. And then Fulmer comes in, and he pretty much owned Alabama the time he was at Tennessee. And then Nick comes in, it completely flips, and they win, I think, 16 or 17 in a row. So it has been pretty streaky for Tennessee to be able to win 2 of the last 3. Makes this, in my mind, a little bit more of a legitimate rivalry now as we go forward. But it's one of the best rivalries in college football, and has taken on so many twists and turns. And I think of different moments. I think of the Deuce, David Palmer, the 2-point play. I guess that was in 90 or 89. I think of the Bama blocking the field goal, Philip Doyle kicking the field goal, I guess on the next play from 47. It would have been good from 67. I think of Dale Jones interception in midair in 85. Tennessee won 16-14, the game that Tony Robinson, Tennessee's great quarterback, got hurt. I think of the 52-49 game where Tennessee finally broke the streak a couple of years ago. You could go on and on and on. The 5 overtime game in
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
And then in 2005, where Tennessee's driving for the winning touchdown and Roman Harper with the textbook tackle knocks the football away, goes through the end zone, and Alabama wins. I mean, listen, that's just
that's called Rocky
of
stuff.
them. I remember the
They
late
even have
Cecil
names.
Hurt. The late Cecil Hurt. I used to love for him to tell this story. When Tennessee won for the first time, it was the '82 season. Coach Majors at Tennessee would have been, I guess, Coach Bryant's last year. There's that iconic picture of Majors up on his players' shoulders, and he's sort of reaching down to Coach Bryant to shake his hand after the game. But Cecil Hurt swears he's never seen goalposts come down as quickly as he did that day in Knoxville, because Tennessee had lost, I don't know, 15, a ton in a row since they had last beaten Alabama. And the first time they'd beaten the Bear Bryant coached Bama team forever. But he said within 5 seconds, both sets of goalposts were down, and they were parading them out of Neyland Stadium.
Well, you got Bama coming off of 3 really emotional type wins, right? You go to Georgia, you beat the Dogs, you come back, you play Diego, who was definitely talking a lot of smack and beat a tough Vanderbilt team. Then you got to go on the road for what I thought was a great trap game opportunity for Missouri, right? And a very inspired, undefeated, ranked Missouri team. Bama hung on to that one. And now you finish up this stretch with a week off coming at the end of the month, right? I guess really it's not even a stretch because it just never ends, right? But this is an NFL type of schedule, and now you got to play Tennessee. I look at Alabama, Chris, and the thing that worries me the most is Jam Miller if he's out, and I think he's going to be out with the concussion. I'd be surprised if he plays. Just one of those bad breaks, and when Alabama doesn't have Jam, they're just not the same offense.
Yeah, and it took a wicked hit. I mean, he was out before he hit the ground, and that was just an ugly, ugly hit. I'm with you. I think it's going to be difficult for him to play. People have played before, and it depends on the degree of the concussion. You got a clear protocol. There are markers you got to hit to play that the medical people, have to sign off on. But as a running back, you're already taking so many hits, Mick, that's hard to come back from a concussion. And listen, I don't claim to know what the degree of it is, but boy, he took a nasty hit. But you're right, man. That's been a different team with him at running back. And we all think of running the football, and that's, certainly he's a big part of their offense running the football, but he's really good in pass pro. He's probably their best blocking running back when they drop back to pass. He's picking up blitz guys. He's picking up guys and giving Ty Simpson more time to throw. He catches the ball pretty well. He's a tough runner. He gets the hard yards down in the red zone when it's 3rd and short, 4th and short. And he's got some explosiveness to him. He's clearly their best guy, and it drops off pretty considerably after him. And he has been, and I pointed out, we talked about it on this show, that when he came back, he missed the first couple of games with the collarbone injury. Probably none of us knew, I'm sure Kalen DeBoer knew, how much they would miss Jam Miller, how much they would miss Tim Keenan in the middle of that defensive line. Well, getting both those guys back, to me, has been a big story in what Bama's been able to do.
When you talk about this matchup, Chris, and where Alabama kind of fits in, you look at Alabama's running situation, and there's a drop-off. Obviously, you hope that maybe Daniel Hill or Richard Young could help out Kevin Riley without a Jam Miller in there, or limited Jam Miller. He's questionable. He may play. I mean, look, by the time people are watching this, who knows?
Right.
But it's with these concussions, you got to be really delicate with someone, and kind of having them sit a game, even if it's against a big rival, may be smart. Besides that, I mean, I feel like the defensive side of the ball, Bama's dealt with some injuries, but Ty Simpson's been just Heisman Trophy-esque, man. He looks like Drew Brees in the pocket. When they give him time, he'll pick your defense apart. He's accurate. Alabama's doing some things right now that I haven't seen them do in a long time, and that's going back to Saban's final years. They're not committing penalties, and they're not turning it over. They're disciplined. There's more discipline on this football team right now and over the last 3 games than we've seen since probably 2020 at Alabama, maybe even before that.
The pairing of Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, and I felt like it would be a difference maker. It certainly has been. Those two guys back together on offense. Now, Ryan calls the plays. Was going to come originally with Kalen, but got the job out in stayed out west with the Seahawks. But to get him back, and I think probably even more precisely, Nick, to have have those guys together, working together. They've been together. They were at Washington together. Look at what they did with Michael Penix. I think you're seeing the fruits of that right now. Not only Ryan's play calling, and he's been really good, but their adjustments and their ability to see what other teams are trying to do to him. The way, as you mentioned, the way Ty Simpson has come on and developed as a quarterback, the confidence he's playing with. I don't think Ryan has probably been given enough credit. And as I said, I'll go even deeper. I think having those two coaches together, working together as they put in the game plan, as they make key decisions on game day, but having Kalen and Ryan both there as your offensive brain trust has paid huge dividends for the Tide.
Since Tennessee, I'm going to give it to my guy, Randy Boyd. Since he took over as president at University of Tennessee, the Vols have been on an upward trend. I mean, they really have, and that's in a lot of different areas, but football being one of them, a respectable program, again, a team that made the college football playoff last year, and a tough opponent for Alabama to have to face in this rivalry. And when you see two ranked teams, it makes the game a lot more fun. What can you tell us about this year's Vols team?
There hasn't been a whole lot of margin for error. You know, the margin between winning and losing games for Tennessee. Maybe I'm talking, Mick, about everybody in the league when I say this, but they played 3 conference games. They're 2-1. They lost an OT at home to Georgia, a 44-41 game. Tennessee didn't finish that game. They had a chance to knock Georgia out. They didn't do it. And Georgia made a lot of big plays down the stretch. Tennessee missed a field goal. They could have won it. So they were right there. The next week or a couple weeks later, they go to Mississippi State in Starkville, which, as you know, can be a tough place to play, underrated. Mississippi State probably was the better team for most of that game, controlled that game. Tennessee was able to make a lot of big plays when they needed to. 2 defensive touchdowns the Vols scored in that game, and they won in overtime. Their third game, Arkansas scores early. Tennessee comes back and scores. They match score. Tennessee gets up double digits, but once again, they don't quite finish Arkansas. And Arkansas gets within 3 points. And Bobby Petrino said after that game that had he kicked a field goal instead of going for it there in the first half, and he was sort of second-guessing himself, then maybe that's anybody's game. So Tennessee played 3 really close football games. They're 2-1. They could easily be 3-0, but guess what? They could maybe be 0-3 if things fell the other way. So this, to me, is the telltale game to this point for the Vols. They go on the road against a Bama team that's rolling, a Bama team that's got a quarterback, which is, without question, the position in football now, who's playing at a high level, maybe a Heisman Trophy level. And can they play consistently enough? Can they clean it up? They had 10 penalties in their last game. There's no way they go on the road and beat Alabama and have 10 penalties. And if they get ahead, which I think they're going to have to, I don't think Tennessee can expect to win this game if they fall behind in that venue and have to play from behind. When I say behind, I don't mean a touchdown, but a couple touchdowns or more and try to come back in that locale. Tennessee's been a different team on the road under Heupel, a much different team than they've been at home. They've given up a lot of yards, a lot of big plays, a lot of yards. Teams have rushed the football against them. Arkansas just absolutely shredded them last week on the ground. They've got to play better and figure out a way not to let Alabama constantly be, in 2nd and 2 and 2nd and 3. They've got to figure out some ways to do that. But this, to me, again, is a telltale game for the Vols because they've been pretty good. They've been pretty resourceful. As I said, they scored 2 defensive touchdowns against Mississippi State. This is the best team. I think Alabama proved when they went to Sanford Stadium and won that they're a better football team. This is the best team Tennessee's played this year. So I think we're going to find out a lot more about the Vols in this football game. I think, too, for both teams, and you may disagree, this to me is a moving type of game.
Mm-hmm.
The team that wins this game, I think, is in great shape to make the playoff. Great shape. The loser, because they each have one game, Bama's got a bad loss. Tennessee's got a loss at home, a tough loss. But you still go to two losses in the middle of October. There's a lot of swimming upstream from there. So, again, I think the winner here, great shape. The loser, got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think it would be worse on Bama than Tennessee.
Probably.
Just because it's a home game. And Tennessee could say, hey, we lost to Bama and Georgia. Alabama loses to Florida State and then loses a home game. Especially when you're an 8-point favorite, that doesn't look good. Hey, guys, I want to remind you that you need to join us at Mick Nation. Join Mick Nation. Hit that QR code at the bottom of the screen, AveD. You get to pick games like Bama and Tennessee. We got swag to give away. They give out cash prizes each week, and it's a lot of fun. They keep the standings reset it each week, and so make sure that you check it out there, AveD and Mick Nation. It's a lot of fun. I know some of you guys are like, hey, I'm ready for the swag. Swag's here. It's here. So it's going out. We're sending it out. But you got to win it. I can't just give it to you. All right. Let's look at some SEC stuff. And then I want to get your take on Penn State before you get out of here, Chris. But you got Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss going to Georgia to play the Dogs. This isn't the same Georgia team that was so dominant and won back-to-back championships, but they're still Georgia. They're still tough. They find a way to win. They found a way to win at Auburn, controversial touchdown, no touchdown, whatever it is, they won. And now you got Ole Miss, who struggled mightily against Washington State, a terrible team. But you wonder, was it because they were game planning for Georgia? And now you have this matchup. You're going to be there.
I think a lot of the teams in the league look alike. I really do. Well, I think you could line up resumes and you could go watch tape. I don't know how many squads, Mick, 6, 7, 8 teams. And someone who's a lot smarter than me would tell you that they all look pretty similar this year. And I don't know what to make of Ole Miss. They're unbeaten. They've won some games. I don't think their schedule has been just a killer schedule. Hey, let's give them credit. They beat LSU. I'm not sure where LSU is or who LSU is at this point. And I guess my point is we could throw a bunch of teams out there right now and make that same statement. So we're going to find out more about Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss played poorly last week. Now, he'd been one of the better stories in the league, the former Ferris State quarterback who had come in after Austin Simmons got hurt and played really good football, a guy that moves around, it's tough to get on the ground. He didn't play as well last week. I would expect in this game that Lane will play both quarterbacks. I bet you see both quarterbacks play in some capacity, both Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss. This will be by far the best team they played. The toughest assignment to go to Georgia and win. I mean, think about if Georgia would lose 2 games at home this year after not losing at home forever. I just have a hard time seeing Ole Miss going to win. They might, maybe that kind of year, but Georgia in these type of games. Remember, Georgia they didn't get beat last year by Ole Miss, Mick. They got pushed around physically.
Right.
You know how many times that's been referenced on the practice field in meetings this week in Athens by Kirby Smart. Hey, we didn't get beat. They beat our ass. And that's something coming off those type of losses. And Kirby hasn't lost often in Georgia. But when you come off those kind of losses like that, they're pretty good. And I think what this game does, if I'm indeed right, and Ole Miss doesn't win and Georgia does, it just further throws the league into a little bit of a chaotic state.
Right.
What does Florida do? Can Florida sort of bounce back and play the way they did against Texas a few weeks ago? What happens there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Tennessee? A&M has got Arkansas. I think Arkansas under Bobby Petrino, and you saw it last week, will be a much tougher out the rest of the way. You're not just going to be able to roll out there and beat those guys. I don't know where we end up in this league. Someone asked me the other day, they said, who do you think is going to be in a championship game? I'm like, if I knew, man, I'd take my buddy Mick Gillespie and we go down to the casino and we take a bunch of your money.
Pearl River. Let's go.
That's right. And I don't know. And it's never really been like this to me. I've always had a feel at this point in the season, who are the 2 best football teams? or at least two of the three best football teams.
Right.
I don't know that right now. I would put Alabama in that group right now, the way they played, and certainly the way they competed and responded against the teams they played. After that, I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even know I was going to bring this up, but I saw the guy from Barstool. He's like Indiana could beat any SEC team by double digits. I was like, I don't know about that, but Indiana's pretty good. It feels like the Big Ten's more top heavy, and the SEC, like, everybody's good. But you're right. Like, there's no one that I would say is great, and I don't think Indiana could beat every team in the SEC, but by double digits.
Well, and first of all, they don't play an SEC schedule. The grind is not the same for Indiana. And let's be honest, schedules in the SEC aren't all created equal. I mean, look at Missouri's schedule compared to what Bama's faced. Look at South Carolina's schedule over the next 4 weeks. Look at what Florida. So within the league, Texas schedule is not as hard as Oklahoma's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. You just have we're going to get away from that starting next year, which is a good thing, I think, for the league. It may not be good for having a bunch of teams with one loss or fewer, but I saw Indiana live. I was at Oregon last week, and I'll say this about Indiana. They are much better, much more physical in the defensive line than I ever thought. They really are. They looked, and it's because, listen, Oregon recruits at a high level.
Yeah.
They got a lot of playmakers. Dante Moore is the real deal at quarterback. He never had much of a chance in that game. They were on top of him most of the game. That's the area of that game where I looked at Indiana. You're watching them live. Okay, these guys, they absolutely would be a major factor in the SEC this year. I'm not going to say they're going to win every game by double digits.
Right.
I'm not going to go that far. But I like what I saw. They've got the Surratt kid is as good as any receiver in the SEC. Their quarterback's playing really efficiently. They got a couple tough runners. And guys like, I'm telling you, guys like Cignetti. He's 64 years old.
Yeah.
They're worth a touchdown on the sideline. He's that good of a game coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he coached at Alabama. We know him.
Right.
Jake Coker, I think he was there with Jake Coker. I know one of the guys that's on this channel was telling me that maybe it was Mike Johnson, but one of those guys he was a coach on the team, and they were like, look, man, I mean, kind of surprised, and not in a bad way, but just, wow. You talk about this legacy of coaches that came through the Saban tree, and it just took him a little while to get an opportunity, and look at what he's done with it. And he's got to be, and even at 64, he's got to be one of the hottest names in college football right now, because what he's doing at Indiana, I mean, you have to take notice.
Yeah. He's, and trust me, schools will. And I think Indiana's got the cash. And we all get sort of caught up, well, this school doesn't have the cash to do this. Well, yeah, Indiana does have the cash to pay him really what he wants. Now, I think it gets down to, does he think can he accomplish everything he wants to in Indiana? 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'd have said, no way, Mick. But now it's a different game, man.
Yeah.
With transfers, and most of his best players he brought with him from James Madison.
Yeah, how about that?
So when you can get transfers and plug holes, and you can pay big salaries, because that's what they are to kids in the transfer portal, you can get well in a hurry, and you can make up ground in a hurry. And you're seeing
also
that.
Scouting too, Chris. Yeah. I mean, if you're good at scouting, not all these guys are good at scouting.
That's right.
Listen to what some service tells you. But just being around baseball my entire life, there are guys that can go out there and see players and see something that the rest of us can't see.
Right, and project from that mid-major level to, all right, this kid's torn it up at James. Surratt's a great example of that. Can he get open against SEC corners or Big Ten corners? Can he separate? Well, the answer is yeah, he can. And so you're right. Getting the right guys, the guys that fit, and we've seen some guys that haven't made it. The Hughes kid from Tulane, I went to Oregon. I sat out with Dan Lanning on Thursday, and he can't get on the field. They're paying a ton of money for him. Well, they've got better kids. They recruited freshmen. So it's not an exact science, but I do think, going back to your original question, A guy like Cignetti at Indiana probably is much more confident that he can accomplish his goals there than he would have, say, 5 or 6 years ago. But no, he's done a great job. I agree. I think the Big Ten has 2 or 3 teams right there at the top. They're as good as any in college football. And maybe the national champion comes among those 3, Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. I do not think they're as good from 1 to 10, nearly as good this year as Alabama, as SEC. I think that's flipped a little bit, Mick. I would have said 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 when Georgia and Alabama and Georgia, and LSU in 19 were dominating. There was a bit of a gap between those teams and everybody else. Now there's really not that gap. So I think in some ways, SEC/Big Ten, it's flipped a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Hanging out with Chris Lowe. Thank you guys for being here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, get in the comment section. We'd love to have you guys here. And we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Azaleas, the Oaks, 2 amazing golf courses this time of year. The weather's beautiful. Hour and a half from Tuscaloosa and 2 and change from Birmingham. All right, Chris, as we kind of get towards the end of this, I got to ask you about Auburn, and I got to ask you about Penn State. Mm-hmm. Auburn with another tough loss, and John Cohen used to be the baseball coach at Tennessee and at Mississippi State. Met him before. He's not patient. I think he's a winner, and they're not winning right now. And he was asked about that and kind of gave this comment where he described his car and, hey, do I think, we're going to fire the coach? Does my car start? And all this stuff. I see Hugh Freeze, who's had success, but he looks awful frustrated. And I thought it was a touchdown in that game against Georgia. But you know what? I'm not officiating it. And the guy should have held on to the football. They wouldn't have that problem right now. They've had a lot of bad breaks, but they're not winning. I'm going to ask you about James Franklin and Penn State, but let me start with Auburn and then let me get into that.
Yeah, don't you love the answers from ADs when they're asked this time of year about their coach's security? Yeah. They're all over the map. And, and ADs, in their defense, how do you answer that, right?
I don't know.
Well, he's my football coach. I expect him to be my football coach. But you know what? I expect tomorrow morning when I wake up, Mick, that my socks in my drawer are clean, right? Yeah, sometimes they're not. Sometimes I throw dirty socks in my drawer. But I just love these answers because and listen, we in the media, you got to ask those fans are asking those same questions. That's right. You got to ask them. But how do you answer that? Now, Hugh Freeze has been incredibly unlucky this year. They've had some really bad calls go against them. I don't think they're that far away. They're not getting drilled. They're not getting pushed around. They can't score. Now, offensively, that's been a huge problem. But they're not that far away from being a much better football team with a much better record. But you're right. Bottom line is they're not. And this is his 3rd year. Auburn, an incredibly proud program with people who don't take kindly to losing to the same teams, and some of the teams they're not even used to losing to. They need to get some momentum. I think this is a game this week that they desperately need to win, because if he's sitting there at 6-6 or even worse at the end of the season, I think he's going to have a really hard time making it. I just don't see, with where the league is right now and other teams having success. You look at Oklahoma this year. Look at what Heupel's done at Tennessee. Look at what Lane's done at Ole Miss. That Auburn's going to sit there and say, well, you know what? We'll go another year and see. The thing about it is their recruiting's been pretty good. It continues to be pretty good at Auburn. But at some point, that's got to translate on the field. And you're right. Hugh looks frustrated. He looks like one of those coaches you're like, all right, I think we're close, but for whatever reason, we're not getting the results we want on the field. We'll see if they can make that happen. I still think they're talented enough and have the personnel to turn it around and be a much better football team. If they don't this week, though, I think it gets a lot more difficult. Yeah,
you're right. If they lose to Missouri, even though I think Missouri's a pretty good football team, people down on the plains aren't going to be really happy. And transitioning over to Penn State, people have gotten on here before and they've said in the comments section, Mick, how could you say James Franklin's a good coach? I know James Franklin from his days at Maryland. As an offensive coordinator and the coach in waiting, I thought that the Terps made a huge mistake when they didn't honor that, and he left and he went to Vanderbilt. He's the first coach really since Lee, who's there now, to actually win at Vandy, and he did it without NIL. And then he went to Penn State, and it was on the cusp, right, of getting over the hump, couldn't beat the biggest rivals, but still had great seasons. And then this year, after that loss to Ohio State, they cratered. And walking off the field, lost to Northwestern, I could tell that it was over. I just could tell. His body language was bad. People were chanting that they wanted him fired. Out he goes. Wow. Crazy. They were like ranked in the top 5 to start this season. And the season's not even over yet. But he's done.
Well, there's a group of schools, I don't know how many, 4, 8, 12, that I don't care how much success you have. We saw this at Georgia with Mark Richt. Probably a decent comparison, right? Rick averaged 10 wins every year. Won a couple. I think he won much like Franklin. He went several years without winning an SEC title, but he did win one. But never won a national title. Never got over that proverbial hump that you just referenced. And they had a chance to get Kirby Smart, and they got him. I think similar. Some people have brought up the former Tennessee comparison. I don't think that's quite the same, because in Fulmer's last year, they were headed toward a losing season, or right there on the cusp. Now, he got fired before the season ended, and they lost to Wyoming. So maybe if he doesn't get fired, they win that game. But the year before, they were in the SEC championship game and lost to an LSU team that Tennessee played toe-to-toe with that went on to win the national title. So I think there's some schools that if you have a dip and you don't win national titles, and they expect you to, and certainly if you've been there, Spur used to call it the new penny. Everybody wants a new penny. After a while, when you've been there somewhere for long, and you haven't won championships, and I say that plural, because James did win a Big Ten title in 2016, which seems like, I'm sure, to Penn State fans eons ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to want a new guy, and I think that's what happened. I think there was a segment there, a prominent segment, an influential segment, that said, you know what? We just don't think he can ever win a national title here. But we can't fire him. They were a play away from playing in the national title game last year. Think about that. They're in the semifinal. And that thing went right down to the end, and Notre Dame beat them on the kick. So they're right there, right on the cusp of playing for it all. As you noted, they started this season ranked in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon comes to Happy Valley, 2 overtime loss. First overtime, I wrote something about it this morning. They go ahead. They're up a touchdown the first overtime against the third-ranked team in the country, and that place is delirious. They're going crazy. Whiteout. Well, they lose that game, and it's almost like they lost their soul. And because that team the next 2 weeks, defeated, uninspired, emotionless, and you know what? There was the opening, Mick. There was the opening to get him. And Penn State took that opening, because had they somehow won the rest of their games and got to be 9-3 and then win a bowl game and go 10-3, then once again it's hard to fire him. They saw their opening, fair, unfair, wise or unwise. I think we're going to find that out here in the next few years. I think they figured out or decided that he wasn't the guy, but they couldn't fire him until they gave him a chance. Well, he gave them that chance, and they did it.
Well, I hated to see it, but you know what? He's going to end up coaching somewhere else, and it'll be interesting to see who they get. Yeah, he's a good coach, and I know some of you guys are going to get in.
And I don't want to talk over. You don't forget all of a sudden how to coach football, right?
Yeah, no, you don't.
You don't. And James is the same way. There's a reason he won 9 in a row, or 9 in back-to-back years at Vanderbilt, and that's never been done. Yeah. There's a reason he was they were a top 10 program 5 of the last 9 years at Penn State. So he coached at a high level, but he was also he was 4-21 against AP top 10 teams.
Yep.
And at some point, and it did, that comes back to get you.
All right, Chris, always great to hang out with you. Thank you for being part of the Bama Tailgate Show and hanging out with us. You guys at On3 are the best in the business. I implore all of you guys to go check out Chris's work and the rest of the gang at On3. What are you working on right now, and where can people catch you?
Yeah, I'm headed to see Lane Kiffin. Big game for them, obviously, on Saturday. And his name will be up there in every coach search, and you can bet on that. And then I'll be at Georgia, Alabama. Excuse me. I was already at Georgia, Alabama. I will be at Georgia, Ole Miss on Saturday there at Sanford Stadium, which I think, again, is one of those telltale games as far as the league race is concerned.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you, guys. Again, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Now's your time to go check out the Timeout Sports Lounge, which is at Golden Moon Casino, Philadelphia, Mississippi. It's just like Vegas. I was out in Vegas last week, better than Vegas, because you don't have to pay for your table to sit down. Like, I go to sit down and they're like, hey, you got to spend $250 to sit there. Okay, well, we don't do that at Pearl River. Check it out for yourself. 20 big screen TVs and a window to place your bets, all that stuff at Pearl River Resort. Chris, we'll talk to you next week. And now I can throw it to Jake Coker to tell you more about Pearl River.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game. In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.
We're presented by Bod Coach, and you can tell I'm slimming up over here, and it's because of Bod Coach. This is absolutely amazing. It's your personal trainer that is with you 24/7. So when I go to hotels or when I'm on the road, I type in, "Hey, look, I got equipment. This is what I have," and it'll make a workout specifically for me, what I want, what exercises I want. When I'm at home or I'm in a hotel and there's no way I can get to the gym, it'll say, "Hey, this is what I want to work on today," and it sends you personalized workout plans. It's really awesome. And they contacted me a few weeks ago to be a spokesman. I said, "Well, I want to try this." Bod Coach is fantastic. Like, I use it all the time. I mean, and if I'm telling you, man, like, it makes working out when you are on the go like me so much better. Just because I don't always know I didn't play football at Alabama. I didn't have Scott Cochran yelling, yeah, and telling me what workouts to do. So anyway, I'm going to put in the body on the YouTube all about Bod Coach. Get you guys signed up there, but tell them you heard it on Bama Tailgate.